Ladies and gentlemen, it is Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran, and today we are going to be examining the Napoleonic combat of Sovietwomble's 19th century musket warfare, Holdfast Nations at War. And we're going to ask ourselves, are soldiers always this dumb? Let's get into it. Highly dramatic introduction with copyrighted music, almost certainly. Sovietwomble hates respecting copyright, which makes his video so very hard to watch for me. Did you like that? That was pretty good, right? I wonder if this is... All right, one thing we could say is national stereotypes are not funny anymore. But in the Napoleonic era, they almost certainly were. I can virtually guarantee it that there were definitely soldiers that, you know, if you were in the French military, you would just relentlessly mock German stereotypes. If you were in the German military, you'd probably mock French stereotypes. And if you were in the Prussian military, you'd mock probably every other German principality, country, nation, and accent. Oh man, they're playing copyrighted music. Oh, this whole thing. I love the idea that the fife and drum corps are just playing like sick bangers from 300 years in the future. I mean, that's pretty funny to think about. Just imagine if you just one song from 2020 contains as many sick beats as a Napoleonic soldier would have heard in their entire life. It almost would be dangerous to expose them to, you know, some modern like thrash hop or something. Oh my God, the I'm walking here guy is still here. Damn, this must have got that joke must have gotten so old and annoying to Soviet. But the worst is that Soviet probably knows that if you start making a big deal about how much you hate a certain joke, it only means people are going to just perpetuate it more and more and more. Okay, he's clearly playing a piccolo. This is obviously a trumpet. Again, just so many catchy tunes that it would probably just blow their minds. You may notice that you have here one person who is dressed as a Scottish Highlander. There's the kilt, right? But you also have this guy who's maybe a Marine, like an old school British Marine, because he has this like flat sailor style cap. And then you have all these other fellows who have the large high caps. And so the apocryphal story, and I don't actually know if this is true or not, was that the giant high caps were to make your force look more imposing than the enemy's, to make them all look taller and more fearsome. Let me know in the comments if that's actually the case or if that's just like a grade school sort of stereotype. They're all just trying to dance as best they can.
Where the hell are you from?
Gotta love the Jersey accent. Oh my God. The New Jersey accent. Holy shit. Gotta love just charging recklessly into the enemy. Not a good idea. Usually best done as a team. Sorry, I was like expecting some like tactics or something.
Gentlemen, I just want to let you know that you're doing fine work.
So what's sort of fascinating to me is that you look at this warfare and then you look at the American Civil War, which was fought with modern equipment, but fought I guess it would have been about 60 years later. So a lot of the tactics are similar. Earthworks, you know, mass formations, charging, obviously volley fire and musket fire. Though I believe by the American Civil War, they were rifles, but they were still one shot. Like the barrels had rifling, but they were still like powder and cartridge like inserted into the right barrel. I think. I know there were some rifles in the American Civil War, but I don't know if they were generally standard issue or if some people still showed up with smooth bore muskets. The rifling, of course, being grooves cut in the barrel that allow the bullet to gain a spin as it leaves the barrel, allowing it to fly in a much straighter, truer trajectory, meaning that instead of massed volley fire, an individual soldier can actually pick out precisely where their bullet will go.
Not everybody responds to that style of leadership, so I appreciate you accommodating me.
Okay, this is like sort of unrelated, this style of leadership talk and accommodating. So I was watching A Few Good Men, which if you've ever seen it, Jack Nicholson plays an extremely self-righteous commander who is in charge of the U.S. forces on Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. So Cuba obviously hates the United States, but they signed an agreement giving the United States access to the Guantanamo Bay area, meaning that it is this place that exists in sort of a legal no man's land. And in it, Jack Nicholson constantly talks about how he's in a forward combat unit. I eat lunch 4,000 miles away or 1,000 yards away from 4,000 Cubans trained to kill me with AK-47s. And we're all supposed to like be actually impressed. And it's funny because here we are like 30 years later and there's, we have 2 decades of war under our belt, and you realize a lot of his like self-righteousness is like a total act and is a total like pompous asshole move. Like you're supposed to kind of feel that way, but you're supposed to think he has a point. And like now with the actual benefit of experience, we realize that he's actually like a parody. Like the level of like, he's just a toxic, draconian, cruel, almost unhinged leader who believes that he has a moral mandate to be that way. But the truth is, if you talk to any decent leader who's worth their salt, any decent combat leader who's worth their salt, you're going to know that you motivate troops with all sorts of different methods. You have positivity, you have comfort, you have rules, you have punishment, you have yelling. You have to have, the more tools you have in the toolkit, the better you are able to pull out the right tool for the right moment. The truth is, some soldiers get beaten down and they don't need to be yelled at, right? Some soldiers need to be yelled at to get their focus back. Some soldiers don't respond to it. It's true. And we know that now with the benefit of 2 decades of combat experience.
You have to keep playing the shitty game mode. Real big and juicy. You don't tell me what to do. No, you're not gonna boss me around.
Okay, right.
You're not gonna boss me around. You think you can boss me around?
Gotta love it. I'm sure that would have gone even more poorly in the Napoleonic era. You gotta remember, in this era, officers were recruited from the generally more aristocratic class, and enlisted soldiers were recruited from the absolute bottom of society. These are people who the general consensus was that they were best placed in the military because they were unsafe or not acceptable to be in general society. These would be like people who were ridiculously poor, extremely uneducated, were, in the thinking of the time, part of like the lower quasi-criminal class. And they were not really, the idea that someone at that station of society could even contend with or argue with someone at the officer station of society was preposterous. Now, in the U.S. military, right, we have this non-commissioned officer corps that bridges the gap, who are generally more proficient, right? Our soldiers are just better at baseline, right? They all have finished high school. They can read, write, by Napoleonic standards, do ridiculously complex math. They generally can think ahead, operate complex equipment, make independent decisions, usually at baseline, at the day they're recruited. And so then you filter it out and you have these layers and layers of non-commissioned officers who exercise leadership and bring their experience to bear. And so by the time you reach your officer corps at the lieutenant, the platoon leader level, you have this cadre of NCOs who can provide really valuable input, really valuable advice, give you ideas. You can draw on their experiences, which are often considerable, right? But the only reason that can happen is because you cultivate it, right? You get experience, certainly, but if you want someone to be a leader, someone who you need to give them enough rope to hang themselves, as the saying goes, right? So you cultivate leaders by giving them rope and saying, hey, I want you to try to achieve this. And then you actually let them fail and learn and gain valuable experience from either failing or doing things a needlessly difficult way.
Stop that.
Please kill yourself. Oh my god. Please kill yourself.
What is this banana thing? I don't know, but it's really triggering the Brits.
I fucking hate that song.
What the heck is that song?
Fuck off with the spamming, for fuck's sake, it's not productive.
Oh man, well, if you want to get meta, we know that video games themselves are not really productive. That's why the Chinese regulate it.
Please fuck off.
Crazy bastard, what the hell are you doing over here? Some sort of cold sacrifice? What the hell?
Fuck me!
Damn, that's a hard wound to treat.
Someone's vaping. Who's vaping?
Yep, that is also a classic NCO move, right? Your troops are all in formation and you hear someone doing something they shouldn't be. Your cell phone goes off and they go, whose cell phone is that? Right? I told you to turn off your cell phones. Oh God, Europa, the final countdown.
Hello, boys. How are you doing?
Oh my God, I'm walking here. Okay, here's what you got to understand about the Italian from New Jersey stereotype. First off, yeah, there's the accent. That's a big part of it, but it's not the whole thing. You got to understand that being an Italian from Jersey is more than just walking around, eating a hoagie, going to the boardwalk, going down to the shore. That's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. The whole thing is that you gotta have an attitude. You gotta have this idea that you're somebody important, that you're going somewhere and doing stuff. You're making moves, you know, you got stuff going on. And that's where I'm walking here comes from, is the idea that you got someplace to be. You're not some dumb layabout like your cousin there doing nothing, sitting watching TV and playing video games all day. You're going places, you're doing things. So when you see some jabroni in the middle of the sidewalk there taking up space, not doing nothing, then you gotta get past him, and you know he's sitting there screwing around, looking at the deli, thinking about going somewhere, and you're like, hey man, I gotta go, I gotta get a little hoagie for lunch, and then I'm gonna go meet with a guy about a thing, you know, but I can't have this dude sitting right in front of me blocking the sidewalk. I'm walking. You don't get out of the way if you're just gonna screw around. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Thankfully, I grew up across the Burlington-Bristol Bridge, so I didn't have to deal with any of these Jersey types. Oh my God.
My immersion! My immersion!
Oh, poor Soviet. Soviet barely even featured in this. Yeah, I mean, warfare like this had to just be controlled chaos, truly.
Let's go for a go.
My nipples are hard.
What?
Hitler, are you selling drugs on the balcony?
Well, at least he's happy. Also want to point out that, you know, presumably oh man, am I going to get demonetized for this? I'm probably going to get demonetized. One presumes that the German dictator of the 40s, that family name came from somewhere. He didn't emerge from the womb and get like a special name. They probably looked at him and were like, father's last name. So there could have been 3, 4, 5 generations prior. Maybe somebody whose first name was Happy. Happy H, we'll call him. Who maybe he even wasn't even that bad a dude. Maybe he was an okay guy. And it just took 5 generations for him to turn into the megalomaniac that, his great-great-great-great-great-grandson would become. Maybe he was just a man who liked hanging out in bushes, popping out and being like, "Can I trust you lads?" I don't know why he's British, but offering people drugs? I mean, what drugs did they have back then? Tobacco, I guess. Drink. Of course, the drink.
All right, chill. Hitler's getting defensive. Jesus Christ. Remember, kids, don't buy drugs off Hitler.
What the hell is wrong with you? I'm walking on a musket. Come on, get moving. Come on.
Oh, God. Oh, my God, the walking. The rest it. Jesus Christ. I can't handle that. Oh, my God. I love the people who cannot do the Jersey accent. Just like, I'm walking here. I am walking here.
Let's go into the muskets upset assholes. I've got a musket you can throw.
Okay. I guarantee it. That joke has been made every single generation going back to probably ancient Rome. Who was like, I have a gladius you can licketh. Like, it's just how it is. I got a musket. Yep. The other joke is almost certainly comparing your weapon to your genitals. That 100%. There's probably some ancient Greek spearman in 200 BC who's just like, oh, look at my sword. Look at my spear.
You cowards have fallen away from the fort.
I got some
Even those
popsicles
ones
in
coming
the
from the
cellar.
tents back into the...
This is a tad silly.
Yep, that it was, ladies and gentlemen. That it was. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, thank you for joining me. Thank you for experiencing all the joy of that copyrighted music with me. And of course, if you want access to some exclusive videos that are just too spicy for YouTube, become a member of the Patreon. Thanks to my Lieutenant Tier patrons. I'll see you in the next one.